Good evening. We are on the second part of investigating the origins of Christianity. And today I'm going to give you something very, very unique, something that I found out during my investigation. And I believe that nobody spotted this for maybe 1,900 years. And I think it has a major implication to the way we can investigate how Christianity started. So we're going to share the screen and we're going to start our session. So my email as usual, this is my email if you want to email me or to ask questions or to propose some things that can help this channel, because like I said, it's a very small channel and it has major disadvantages versus the other channels that are geared up, for large viewers. So the major discovery that will be represented in this episode, it revolves around the question, is Christmas related to Hanukkah? The Jewish Hanukkah. Every year in December, you have the Christmas and then the Hanukkah. Sometimes the Hanukkah falls on the same day of the Christmas. That depends on the calendar, because Hanukkah is determined by the Jewish calendar, and it's always on the 25th of Kislev. And funny enough, Christmas is the new Christian calendar, the Gregorian calendar. It was before the Julian calendar, but it was always on the 25th of December. So we're going to check that out, and you will be surprised what can be gleaned out of the connection between Hanukkah and Christmas. Because if you read in the newspapers, they'll tell you there's no connection. Well, we will see about that. So, as I mentioned in the last episode, Josephus' writings, the historian Josephus Flavius, within his writings, there are clues to solving some of the design, I call it the design of the Christianity scriptures. So, Josephus Flavius is a historian that lived from 37 to 100 AD. And I believe that he is instrumental in unlocking some of the secrets of Christianity. I would assume that most of the followers in historical channels like this one will know a fair amount about Josephus's writings. And in his writings, you can learn a lot about the Roman rule in the Middle East in the 1st century and the beginning of the Jewish-Roman wars, and the big rebellion that ended in the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. You can also learn from Josephus things that happened before the Romans and during the Greek rule, after Alexander the Great have conquered the Middle East, and the relationship with the Jews in Syria, Judea, and Egypt, the relationship between the Greeks and the Jews for hundreds of years. And this relationship had ups and downs, and it was terminated eventually by the defeat of the Greeks by the Romans. And then after the defeat of the Greeks, the Romans had a hell of a lot of relationship with the Jews, as you can see, for many, many centuries, maybe 500 years, I would say. And one of the major points was the destruction of the temple. Now, it is important to note that the writings of Josephus probably were published at 94 AD. And this is very important for our investigation because, like I said, from Josephus, you can glean that a lot of the New Testament stuff has been extracted somehow from Josephus's writing, as you will see. Now, what's important is that Josephus is credible by the fact that he was referenced by a few other Roman historians. And, you know, I have read some New Testament scholars that sometimes try to undermine Josephus's writing when it suits them. And when, of course, when it doesn't suit them, like the Testimonium Flavium, which is about Jesus, then they say, oh, look, Josephus right there's a proof about Jesus. Although now we know that this Testimonium Flavium was probably inserted into Josephus Flavius' writings, what we call an interpolation by the Christian Church. Most probably, of course, some scholars still debate it, but I think the arguments that the scholars from the other side have brought up, based on style and writing and many things, have shown that it is a Christian interpolation. So my answer to the other camp, okay, which is usually quite a sort of religious or you know, religious sort of bias, not all of them, of course, crowd, is that Josephus is a historical document recognized by other historians, Roman historians, while the New Testament Gospels are not. And I would say that they are a pseudo history, as I will reveal. And again, it's not that I'm judging anything, because for the people who wrote the New Testament, for them it was true. Why it was true? Because when they didn't have the information, they had to make it up, and because they believed very strongly about their religion and about Jesus, you know, and then they wanted to back it up with some historical documentation, which they didn't have, so they had to make it. And I mean, this is to today, even today, in political parties, in other places, when you want to convince somebody, you know, that to go onto your side, you invent something, and you know, you show it to be true, and then and for you it's not even called a lie, because for you it's absolutely truth, because you know, the more important for you is that the belief that the other person will have the same belief as yours. And when this happens, you know, lies and truths, there's no lies and truths. The truth is what I say. I dreamed last night, I had a revelation, and I wrote it down on a piece of paper, you know, on paper, and then I convince you that this revelation is true. It must be true, because I have to, you know, to make you believe. So now, one of the interesting things is about one of the most renowned Roman historians, and he was a Roman senator. His name is Cassius Dio, and he lived from 155 to 235, and that's most of the 2nd century and a little bit of the 3rd century, and he largely ignores Christianity altogether. In his 80 books, he goes into details of the politics, religions of the Roman Republic, you know, all kinds of religions. He goes into detail about Jewish religion, and he wrote the history of the Roman Republic and before it became an empire, you know, from the Roman Republic up to the Roman Empire, for about 1,000 years before he died. So he wrote for a long time and very detailed. And I've mentioned in the previous video that there is no evidence, so in Christianity, in the Jewish Talmudic scriptures before the 4th century. So Cassius Dio, which was a very credible historian, does not mention Christianity at all, or almost nothing, very little. And even that little, as you will see, even that little is deemed by quite a few scholars as an interpolation. Anyhow, the earliest report from Roman historians about Christianity was thought to be Tacitus, which was dated at 112 AD, okay? But it is reported that it have been altered by a scholar named George Anderson, and the word Christian and Christ seem to have been Christos and Christo, which means good and the good ones in Latin. So that whole report of Tacitus was about some people that believe that they are the good ones, and they believe that their leader was the good person in Latin, and not Christo and Christians. And it's seen by the UV light by that scholar named George Anderson that the alteration was probably made on a copy from the 11th century. So we mentioned Josephus, and Josephus is important, and therefore we can try and see what we can glean out of Josephus's writings. Apart from the hotly contested Testimonium Flavium, which I told you about, which I believe has been shown by very respectable researchers to be a Christian interpolation based on context, on writing style, and the words used. And also Eusebius, if you saw my first episode, Eusebius is a very credible, very important, I would say, Christian writer. And he reports that Origen, which was another one of the church fathers, is about 2 generations before him, because Eusebius was the teacher of Pamphilus, and Eusebius was the student of Pamphilus, and Pamphilus was the student of Origen. And Origen wrote about Josephus' writings in some of his own writings, and according to Origen, Josephus did not believe or respect Jesus, which implies that the Testimonium Flavium in the copy that Origen read was not there. So the Testimonium Flavium about Jesus in Josephus' writing is probably an interpolation that was done, we don't know, maybe 200, maybe 230, somewhere before, either towards the end of Origen's life or afterwards, after 253. Now, nevertheless, Josephus, he had some crucial information about the Jewish sect called the Essenes, which you probably heard of. And he claims that, Josephus himself claims in his book that he spent 3 years with them learning the inner secrets of Judaism scriptures and morality. And funny enough, in the New Testament, Paul also claims to have spent 3 years in the desert in such an environment, just after his revelation of Jesus. And there are many other suspicion, I would say, the suspicious facts about Paul's life, including his stay in Rome and the way he went to Rome and the way he had a revelation, and they coincide with Josephus's life. At the same time that Paul was in Rome, Josephus went to Rome to release 3 priests. Now, the 3 priests in Paul, he says him and the other 2 guys were in the Roman prison at the same time, at the same year. When Josephus was born in around 37, that's what they estimate that the time that Paul had his revelation about Jesus, because Paul, according to the Christian scriptures, never met Jesus personally. Anyhow, let's go back to the Essenes, which is important. The descriptions of the way they live as a community, with little regard to possessions and wealth, the way they share resources equally, the way they devote their life to study scriptures, the way they love other members of the community, some of their members' ascetic life in the desert as part of their initiation process, their belief that the other Jewish sects in Jerusalem have become materialistic, greedy, collaborators who have compromised the faith of the God of Israel. And this is the reason that they cannot free themselves from the Roman rule. All this echoes New Testament stories about the money changers at the temple and general corruption of the priesthood. If you want to know more about corruption, you can read my natural philosophy book about corruption. It's kind of again a human nature, and it's I would call it a human condition, and it's like a basic instinct that accompanies humans from time immemorial. So corruption is always there, was always there, and is now today in the world, and it will continue to be there. But that's another story, and for some other time, more of a philosophical story, why corruption can never really leave us, leave humanity. It can never depart. There's always going to be corruption. Anyhow, it is also mentioned that the Essenes believed that at some stage, a savior, which was named Yeshua in Aramaic, or Yeshua in Hebrew, which Aramaic and Hebrew are very close to each other. And so there it's Yeshua, here it's Yeshua. Anyhow, the savior, Yeshua, will rise someday and lead all the Jews to victory over the Romans and freedom. Now, a leader that will be Yeshua, the savior, okay, should be similar to the biblical Joshua, who freed Canaan and restored the land to the tribes of Israel. That's from the Old Testament Bible. Now, why is this important? Because the New Testament was originally written in Greek. And I speak, when I say why it's important, I speak about the name Yeshua, and the fact that Joshua and Jesus are in actual fact one and the same thing. Because the New Testament was written in Greek, which was spoken in the Middle East, and it is a bit different from the original Greek. And the only Greek similar to it nowadays is the Cypriot Greek. The village Cypriot Greek is similar to the Greek that was spoken in the Middle East. And I speak about Egypt, Palestine, or Israel. Now, Jesus there in the New Testament, in the Greek Testament, is Jesus. And Joshua is also Jesus, but Jesus bin Nun. Bin Nun is like his son of Nun. Bin is son and Nun. Okay, so the name Joshua, which is Yehoshua in some cases in Hebrew, or Yeshua, was very common, and it had a meaning of God Savior. Ye is God, Shua, Savior. So the name had quite a few variations, such as Yesaiah, which is in English Isaiah, okay, but in Hebrew it's Yesaiah. It's just you change the letters from Yeshua, Yehoshua, to Yeshaya. And in order to reduce the letters which describes God, you need to know a little bit of Hebrew to get there, because they all the time were trying to reduce the names so that they don't have letters that describe the name of God, which is Yehovah, or in English Jehovah, but Yehovah. So they wanted all the time to reduce the letters. So they had shorter versions like Yeshua instead of Yehoshua, or in Aramaic, Yisa in Aramaic. So, and which that's where the origins of the Arabic word Isa. So it's Isa or Yesa, it's the same. So all of them are the same. Yesa, Yehoshua, Yeshua, and the English derivation thereafter, which is Jesus. Now, there is the Qumran scrolls, and there one of the nicely, or the most nicely preserved scroll of Isaiah, which is Yesaiah, God Savior. Again, it's a God Savior, is there. And you should notice that in the New Testament, they make heavy use of the Isaiah phrases, especially regarding Jesus' prophecy of the destruction of the Second Temple. Now, Isaiah extensively prophesied, or at least they say prophesied, and wrote about the destruction of the First Temple. But in the New Testament, they take lots of his phrases and they put them under a new form, and they say, now it's not Isaiah who said that, it's Jesus who said it about the Second Temple. But if you look at them carefully, you'll see it's the same, or if not the same, very, very close, with minute changes. Now, this is the one clue about where some of the things that where they took things for the New Testament is the Isaiah scroll, among many other places which you will see later on. But when you read, let's say, Paul's epistles and his guidance to various churches in Asia Minor, and then again, I looked at all the churches in Asia Minor that Paul's supposed to give guidance to, and there's the 7 churches, and you will find a ton of Paul's epistles, but no evidence whatsoever, nothing. And in fact, in one of the cities, there's an evidence of a huge synagogue from the 4th century. I think it's the city of Sardis. From the 7, there's one of them is called Sardis. And again, that comes again after the first episode that I said that there's no archaeological evidence, for churches before the 3rd century. So that can give you an idea when Christianity arose. And we spoke about Gnosticism, that the Gnostic Christian that was on the 2nd century, and we'll come back to all of these things. But anyhow, the Essenes' way of life, as described by Josephus, the kind of echoes in the New Testament, especially in Paul's epistles. Now, if you take into account that Paul also claims to have spent time there, it may be not totally surprising. However, what is more surprising are the similarities between Paul's life and Josephus's life. And we will go into these, and there are many parallels which will be discussed in the next episodes, because time is limited. I don't want to prolong the videos for very, very long. And then we will make other videos that will clear some points. But I spoke about it before, a lot of Paul's life, okay, there's maybe 10 points which I might bring in the next episodes that show close similarity to Josephus' life. Now, Josephus lived from 37 to 100, and Paul, they don't know when he was born, but according to, if you look at the calculations, he died around 63 or 63 AD. And then you think, oh, maybe he was 63 or 64. Maybe he was born in the 1st year, So Paul was born maybe because he's claimed to be around 64 years old. Anyhow, we will discuss that, but now we will go to the main point of this video, which I wanted to share, and then we will speak about Joseph some other time. Now, this is usually like a Christmas tree, it's a picture of some Christmas tree or Christmas celebrations. There's a Christmas tree with lights and so on. And we spoke about Hanukkah and Christmas. So this is like a typical Hanukkah. Again, lights, and it's, lights, and okay, they eat donuts. Now, the question is Christmas related to the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah? Now, many claims on the internet can be found on similarities between Passover and the Easter. Okay, that's almost like a dead giveaway that the Passover or the Easter was remodeled on the Passover, including the last meal. It's almost like, but I have yet to see anyone claim that Christmas and Hanukkah are related. Now, this thing will be changed. This will be changed now, and May might change everything you know about Christianity, because, and here is my revelation to you, which took me some time, because what my job is to think where the people who wrote the scriptures, whether it's Jewish or Muslim, or in this case, Christianity, where did they borrow their scriptures from, or borrow the heroes from? Because it's very easy to see that Christ has 12 disciples. At the time of the Joshua, there were 12 tribes that entered Israel. Within the Greek pantheon, there's 12 gods. So now I said to myself, let me check and see if I can find these 12 people somewhere else in the scriptures, in the Jewish scriptures. And guess what? These are the Maccabee Dynasty, the ones that are supposed to be celebrated by the Hanukkah, because the Maccabee Dynasty, there they are, the Maccabees. Okay. There is Mattathias, who was the head of the dynasty. And this is the first 4 generations. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, he is the first generation. So second generation, third generation, fourth generation. Now, what I'm going to claim here is a bomb. Why? Because I say all the disciples, Jesus' disciples, are in here, within the 4th generations of the Maccabees. So, now, I of course say this discovery was made by myself, Advocate Leon, and anyone who wishes to use it in the future should get my permission, because it's just fair that it's my copyright. Now, what you're going to see is not perfect fit, but very close, because of course when somebody does something, there's major efforts to conceal the encryption of the first Christian scriptures. So I hope I'm going to explain it as good as best as possible. And one of the things that I would like to first say is that the person who did this, he must know Hebrew, of course, Greek, some Aramaic, he must know the Bible, okay? And because there's many terms that it's not so easy. I didn't find it just like that. It took me some time to think about it and understand that the people who did it, they know a lot about Greek history and Jewish history and the Bible, and they know Hebrew and they know Greek. And let's try and see how does that pan out. One of the words is Alpheus. Alpheus is mentioned in the New Testament, and it means replacer in Greek. And then there's another thing which is important in Hebrew, is the name Zebedee, okay, Zevadia in Hebrew, and Mattathias, Mattatya. Now, Zevadia and Mattatya are synonymous, and it actually means God's gift. Okay. Now, the Maccabee history is very important as well, as they are fundamentally linked with the fishing village of Beit Sada in the Galilee. And so are the disciples. If you know, of course, you know the story. If you are a Christian, you must know the story of Beit Sada. Now, according to the list, okay, in the Synoptic Gospels, there were 12 which were chosen near the beginning of the ministry, and they are named apostles. Now, the ones who are easy to spot are the number 1 I made them like here, from here, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There is the leader, Mattathias, God's gift, which can be equivalent to Jesus. He was a God's gift according to the tradition. And there are his disciples. Now, these are the Maccabees. And funny enough, the Maccabees are still a book which is in the canon of some of the Christian church, the Maccabees itself. But of course, they would never tell you that the disciples are remodeled upon them. And let's look at it. Simon Maccabeus is easy to spot. It's like Simon, Simon the disciple, also called Peter. Okay. Now, sometimes he is known as Simon Bar Yonah, and sometimes Simon Bar Yochanan. That's another Simon, which we will have a look at it, because there's another Simon. But Simon is easy to spot. Now, Simon Maccabeus, okay, is the eventual replacer of Mattathias. And therefore, like I said, in Greek, Alpheus, okay, it's a term which is used in the New Testament, as will be shown below. And we almost might notice that the term Bar Yochanan means kin of Yochanan. So Alpheus is the replacer. And if you look carefully here, eventually, if you know the history, Mattathias had 5 children. From them, they died each and one in with his own tragedy story, in wars with the Greeks. But the replacer was Simon. So this is Alpheus. And that replacer, his descendants are the continuation to the 4th generation. So let's have a look. Okay. Now, the ones that are, this is not so easy to spot, but Andrew is another one, again from Bethsaida, a fisherman, okay? But Andrew is Eliezer here. Why? Because Eliezer, he had a heroic act, which he actually killed. You need to know the history. He killed the elephant. So Andrew in Greek is actually Andreas, and Andreas is synonymous in Greek to a brave person. Okay? And brave, what he did was brave. Further than that, if you look at the first man in the Bible that was helped by God, and El-Azar means helped by, so it was Adam, which Adam in Hebrew is translated to Andreas, a man in Greek. Okay, now this is the interesting thing here is Jonathan Maccabeus is Jonah or John. Okay, John. Now, John, son of Zebedee. You remember we spoke about Mattathias and Zebedee, which means, and this is the giveaway, because in the New Testament they speak about Zebedee, they speak about sons of thunder, and you will see John, son of Zebedee. So we know that Mattathias and Zebedee are the same, and there you have it. John is Jonathan, in fact, son of Zebedee. This is Zebedee. Okay, Mattathias is synonymous to Zebedee. Then you have James, but I will go to James just now because it's a bit more complicated, because it's very difficult. You need to know the Bible in order to unlock this. But the one that is also difficult but easy to spot is Philip. Okay, Philip of Bethsaida of Galilee. Now, if you look at Alexander Yaneus, okay, there is Alexander Yaneus. Here, Alexander Yaneus. Okay, Alexander Yaneus. Yaneus in Greek can mean a birther, somebody that gave birth. So who gave birth to Alexander in history? Philip. So Alexander Yaneus is the disciple Philip. Okay. Now, which ones are the more difficult is here? The John Gadi and John Hyrcanus, because in the New Testament, they don't appear as John, they appear as James, but have a look, very interesting. Okay, very interesting. He's here, James. James, John's brother, that's in the New Testament. James, John brother, son of Zebedee. Okay, so we have here, this will be James, and I will show you how that John became a James. Okay, but he is son of John, I mean, he's a brother of John, and he is a son of Zebedee, which is Mattathias. Now, why is it James and not John? Because James is in fact, in Hebrew, Jacob. And Jacob in the Old Testament has another name. It's Johanan, and it means God pardoned. Why? Because Jacob in the Old Testament was pardoned by God, okay, because he stole the blessing of Esau, and he had to wrestle an angel. I don't know if you know the Old Testament story. And thereafter, he was pardoned by God. So he earned also the name Johanan. So Yohanan is almost like Johann, which is actually John. There it comes the John. Now, what is important is the term that in the New Testament that is the son of Zebedee. Zebedee in Hebrew means God's gift, and we said Mattathias also means God's gift, and that's the head of the Maccabeus dynasty. Now, in the New Testament, James is also mentioned as son of thunder. Okay? If thunder refers to the creation or son product of God, like from Greek mythology, you know, Zeus is God, but he used to use the thunder, and the thunder is actually a gift to humanity because it brings rain and so on and so forth. So if thunder is a son product of God, then Zebedee, Mattathias, and thunder inevitably refer to Jesus, son of God. So, and like I said, who in comparison to the diagram that we saw for the Maccabees is the head of the Maccabee dynasty. Okay? So, then we have Thaddeus, which is Judas, son of James. Now there's about three Judas. One of them is Thaddeus, one of them is called Thomas. There's about three of them. There are a few Judas within the Maccabee dynasty. And so there's a few Judas in the New Testament, three of them, and there's three in the Maccabee dynasty. Okay? The oldest and the first generation is Judas Maccabeus, which is the brother of Simon. Okay? And here they say, in the New Testament, it says, Lebeus, Judas, Judah, Simon's brother. Okay? So that's the first one. Then the second generation is the son of Simon and brother of Johanan Hyrcanus, which is effectively James, who fits in more with Thomas below. Okay? And the last generation is King Judas, Aristobulus I, which is the son of Johanan Hyrcanus, and who fits the Judas Iscariot figure of a traitor of the Jewish people as described below. And that we can do a whole episode why Judas Aristobulus, King Judas Aristobulus, is equivalent to Judas Iscariot, because there's a whole thing about it. He actually enthroned himself in defiance of a tradition of like 500 years since the exile of Babylon, that there was no king in Judea, and he was considered by most of the Jews as a philelin, which means lover of the Greeks, and a traitor. So he actually fits the Judas Iscariot. But like I said, we can look at you know, in the New Testament, the first one is Simon's brother. So here you are. If we look at it again here, you have Judas Maccabeus, Simon's brother. He's Simon's brother, okay? And he's son of Zebedee. But sometimes they mention it, sometimes they don't. Anyhow, let's look at the next ones. Bartholomew. Bartholomew in Aramaic, it's Bar Talmai, son of Talmai, or it doesn't have to be a son, it can be a grandson. It's originator from Talmai, okay? Now, some, they don't know if it's Ptolemy, but if you look at Bar Talmai in Hebrew, it means originated or king of Talmai. And Absalom in the Old Testament Bible is the grandson of Talmai. And there is Absalom. Absalom. So Absalom, if you look at the Old Testament, it's actually Bartholomew. Okay. Then we spoke about Thomas, which is Judas again, Judas Thomas Didymus, and he's a twin. And if you remember, in the Gnostic, the Gospel of Thomas, they said that he's a twin to Judas. Sorry, he's a twin to Jesus. So it's another issue, but he is actually probably the second generation Judas Maccabeus. James we spoke about. Matthew is the tax collector, and Matthew is again Mattathias. So it's the second generation Mattathias. Okay, it's number 7. Number 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Mattathias, Matthew. There you are, disciple Matthew. And the last one is the other Simon, and this is interesting because it's Antigonus, and Antigonus in Greek can be anti, against, gonus, mean parent, but it can be egonos as well, grandchild. So it can be the grandchild that is actually was against his parents. I mean that he didn't behave as his grandparents. He was anti, against. And there, where we have that one, it's this one here, Antigonus. And Antigonus was, if you know the story, the stories of the Maccabees, he was ruling with his brother. His brother was the king, but he was like his right hand, until his brother suspected that he's going to try to dethrone him, and then he actually executed his own brother. But apparently after that execution, he went into depression, and then he just died himself. And that's the Aristobulus Judas. Okay, so you know, there's many parallels, and you can see that what I claim is that's where the disciples were taken from. So I hope that this thing was a real big surprise. And then here I'm going to just go through them again. So Mattathias is Zebedee, it's thunder, and they all represent Jesus as God's gift to humanity. John Gadi is Johanan Gadi, also Jacob in Hebrew, and his disciple James 1. Simon is Simon Thassi, disciple Simon 1, Petrus. Judas Maccabeus is Judas Maccabeus, disciple Thaddeus, Judas in Greek. Elazar is disciple Andrew. We spoke about men and manly, and he had what you call a very brave act, you know, by it's a very interesting story. You can go and read it for yourself. Then we have Jonathan Apus, which is disciple John, and then John Hyrcanus, disciple James II, Mattathias, disciple Matthew, Judah, disciple Thomas, Aristobulus. And in the Jewish tradition, Aristobulus is called Judas Aristobulus, okay? And then his disciple Judas Iscariot, Alexander Janneus. Alexander Janneus is disciple Philip. Why Janneus? Alexander Janneus, the birther of Alexander. In the Greek history, the birther of Alexander was Philip. Antigonus against the grandfather, and you know the Antigonus is the Simon Bar Yochanan, and who fits the diagram. His disciple Simon too, and Absalom is Bartholomew. Now, this one is probably one of my best discoveries yet, you know, and I'm confident that no one have noticed this for at least, I would think, 1,900 years. So I think I did a good job. So whoever wrote these disciples, okay, he probably did not have information, okay, and therefore he either dreamt about it at night, he found a way to get his disciples and to encrypt them so that nobody can see that they come from the Maccabees. And my job was to dream, how did he manage to do that? And I think this is quite a compelling discovery. And it actually helps us a lot in unlocking the whole mystery of Christianity, which I will show in my next episode. I don't know, maybe I will need a few more episodes, but because the Christianity is very complicated, as you can see, but at least now we know who the disciples are. Now, it still does not prove that there was no Jesus, because maybe there was a Jesus, but they didn't know anything about him, and it was maybe an oral story, and then maybe he had some disciples, they didn't know how many. At some stage, they decided that, okay, he will have 12 disciples, like the 12 tribes of Israel, or the 12 gods of Zeus. You know, Zeus that gives thunder as a gift. You know, Zeus, the all important Greek god, and therefore, and you remember what I said in the New Testament, it's a mixture of biblical Jewish stories and Greek mythology, Greek Roman mythology, but the morals are Jewish. They come from the Jewish religion, and there's no doubt about that. And these people, whoever they were there that spoke Greek, and they maybe didn't like the Jews because they were already becoming their own thing, which is Christian. But I can tell you definitely they hated the Greeks, because the Greeks represented for them a very different type of animal, which was very sort of there were all kinds of things that are considered immoral in Christianity and Judaism, like maybe forced slavery, pedophilia, all these things, homosexualism, which today is a bit different, but at that time it was considered a sin to be a homosexual or a lesbian in Jewish tradition and Christian tradition. And in the Greek tradition, they didn't care. But like I said, the Greeks as well, they were very cruel people too. And like I said, they had very tough laws and rules and they enslaved the other people, and they did all kinds of not nice things to them. So obviously all these people there, if it was in what is Israel, Palestine today, or Egypt that time, and Asia Minor, they did not like the Greeks. They definitely didn't. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and then I hope that it opened your eyes And I can assure you that I really solved the question of Christianity and even who was Jesus remodeled upon. But I'm going to write a book. I'm actually already writing a book about it. It probably will take me quite a long time. And in the book, there will be many, many more details, because this is just maybe a 50-minute video. You can't say much in a 50-minute video. And people today don't even have time for 5-minute videos. I just hope that they'll have the patience to look at these videos, and then maybe one day people will look at my book as well. And thank you very much. I hope this was something really special. At least for me, it was when I found it. And then let's hope that we will have the next good video, which will explain how Christianity was evolved. And I can tell you now, even if you look from Josephus, it's very unlikely that it was before 94 AD when Josephus published his book. Now, if it was 94 AD, or even after that, according to the archaeological things that we find things from 125, 150. Now, we will see in the next video, but I believe it couldn't be before 94. And before they used to say, no, maybe some of the New Testament was written at 80 and Mark is the first gospel. I don't believe in that. And then afterwards, I saw some New Testament scholars say, oh, no, maybe it was from 80 to 110, somewhere between that. That's possible, but I believe that it's even a bit later than that. And then we will talk about it in our next videos. So have a good evening, and I hope you enjoyed it, and my best regards to my viewers. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.